drink tonight?
Sadly, just water in a teacup.
Einen wunderschönen guten Abend, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren. Es ist Dienstagabend, es ist 19 Uhr und Sie sind an der richtigen Stelle. Wir haben die Getränke parat, ich hoffe Sie auch. Und wir freuen uns heute auf unseren hochkompetenten Special Guest Michael Hoos. Und damit Sie sich auch wieder damit freundlich auseinandersetzen können, wie fit sind Sie in Ihrem Englisch, machen wir das natürlich wieder in Englisch, so wie Sie es von uns gewohnt sind. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our 35th CRMKonvos. Today with our special guest, Michael Hoos, an expert in everything around security. But not the security for your money, the security for your belongings, or as an insurance specialist. No, he is the one who keeps all these chaps happy and alive because he is in cyber security. And this means a lot these days. And welcome to our small round, dear Michael. And I would be more than pleased if you introduce yourself to our audience, please.
For sure. Thank you, Ralph. I'm not quite sure. I think we thought we only drink water, what you had, but yeah. Michael Hoos, 50 years old. I'm learning IT security since 1998 and support organizations in becoming more resilient against all those cyber threats. I'm working for Micro Focus, and I'm leading the data privacy and protection portfolio here for Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And in my spare free moments, I'm a voluntary firefighter and a beekeeper.
Beekeeper. Ooh.
Yeah, that's honey. Honey to your ears.
Cool.
That's the first. I think you may be the first apiary attendee I've ever met.
Here we go. It's never too late, Marshall.
What do these do precisely?
Bees?
Yes, these firsts that Marshall ever met.
And they're beekeepers. It's what they are. It's just another word for beekeeper. Apiarist.
He tried to impress us with his Latin language skills.
Yeah, that you see how well that worked.
Well, he showed that mine are missing.
Pshaw.
Oh.
Now,
See, when you try and make jokes about bees, sometimes you get stung.
but unfortunately, not everybody is having so much fun, such as those people which have been moved sometimes with a little more energy into their home offices. Michael, what is your experience in the express move to the home office and the challenges from a security perspective?
I mean, there's a lot of people saying that the pandemic has been accelerating digital projects more than anything else over the past years. I think I have a slightly different view on that one. I think what happened was that overnight, most organizations had to reprioritize what they wanted to do. Actual projects have been stopped because all of a sudden everyone had to work from home and oh gosh, we forgot to license the VPN appropriately. How do we get that? We don't have notebooks. How can we enable our folks to work with their private devices? And all of a sudden you're opening up for thousands of new threats from people that work with their own devices on corporate applications, in corporate networks, And that mixture of private and corporate devices is just a nightmare, right? Also then quickly moving workloads into the cloud, right? Not thinking twice. I mean, just take the collaboration platforms as an example. You can use Zoom, you can use Teams, you can use whatever, and then the data privacy officer wakes up the next morning and then realizes, oh my God, what have we done? We are sharing company secrets on an unsecure platform, right?
So what would be the platform to use then? Cutting directly to the chase.
Well, that's.
I mean, we can do it like the old guys in the Fugger area. Write a letter, have a courier, and wait a few days till they come riding back.
Or we can do it like the German health authorities still do it, using fax machines, which is
What's
still
that?
something that I mean, the regional health institutes are reporting the infection numbers largely still by fax.
Yeah, which makes pretty much sure that it's inaccurate. So, but right now, so not talking federal businesses who are notoriously bad and late, unless they are New Zealandish, by the way. As a business, so taking into consideration that we do not want to share too much information to people who are not eligible for it. Now, Zoom seems to be fairly secure. Teams seems to be fairly secure. Always was, although there was a contention about their terms of usage. So what can one do as a conscious company that doesn't want to put the foot on the brake fully?
I mean, the majority of tools in the meantime have stepped up in terms of security, like Zoom, for example. You have other alternatives like Jitsi, and you have players that have been in the market already for years and years, like WebEx, GoToMeeting, and all of those. I guess no matter how secure or insecure those products are, it also comes down to how users are using them. I mean, convenience seems to always be more important than I have to have a link, I have to have a session password, and potentially I'm using a lobby function where I actively allow people to participate rather than everyone just dropping into the call. And then all of a sudden I'm surprised that a school class gets a porn shown by someone who hijacked the session, right? I mean, how on earth could that happen if you just securely and consciously use those tools?
Yeah. Okay. So start. Sorry, Marshall. You're next. I promise.
Sure.
Now
or next after you?
After me. No, after Michael, because I'd like him to answer.
I'll just go get lunch. When I come back, I'll talk.
Great. Well, schools is another example. So they have been unprepared for 2 decades, or probably as long as I'm out of school, which was 86. So what they did is just start with something that was there, which first of all is not a bad idea in order to keep the shop running. Yeah? So what could they have done in between is one question, and the other question was, why do you think they chose Zoom over Cisco, WebEx, and all the other stuff?
Well, I mean, the initial versions are for free, right? That give you 45 minutes and a certain number of participants. But the problem is it's less about the technology that the school is using. The problem also starts with how many kids actually have the equipment, the internet access to participate in any of those offerings. My wife is a teacher in Germany, and at a school with all kind of kids from all different income situations. Let's put it that way. And they have 50 to 60% of the kids that don't have access to internet, mobile phone, tablets, or whatever, right? I mean, now there's a huge effort that they get an iPad or whatever immediately. Doesn't solve the issue with the bandwidth and internet access. But it's far more things that have been ignored around school system, in particular in Germany. I mean, I printed 15,000 pages for 100 new school kids prior to the summer vacation last year. So they got at home, 100-pager home for all the different subjects that they have something to learn in their hands. That was the only way to reach them in the year 2020.
Well, welcome to Germany.
But again, it's not. I mean, there's so many topics that we could touch here around the same that is true for schools and the medieval approach to IT that they have is true for a lot of companies that we have, mid-sized companies, family-run companies. Recently had a discussion with a company that is building huge construction machines, where the owner says, I don't care about GDPR. I only care about our intellectual property and our plans for our machines. I'm happy to take the fine on GDPR if we have a breach, but I don't want to lose my trade secrets, my IP for the machines. I mean, GDPR is around for how long? 4 years, right? There have been examples of companies that paid quite a decent amount of penalty over the past years. And how on earth can you still believe that you can just get away with it? It's happening left, right, and center. I think we need to get back to basics and get the basics right. Marshall.
Oh, right, me.
Hope you enjoyed your lunch.
It was delicious. See, this leaves me wondering, should we have been better prepared? I know that we're probably better off talking about how we can make things better in the future, but I think maybe looking at how we were not ready enough in this case may speak to what happens the next time the world falls apart. It's always been, I think, the idea that it's better in business to respond to a crisis than to have a contingency prepared for it, because if you have the contingency, you have to pay for it ahead of time. Does that still make sense?
But to me, it makes perfectly sense. I mean, the Greek word crisis, to impress with my language skills, is actually the real meaning of it is it's a turning point, right? And we are in a crisis. We realize that we can't deal with the situation ad hoc like we have now since a year. And now the question is, do we get the turn? Do we really turn around the ship and prepare ourselves better for what else is coming? And we started the discussion around how home office has changed the whole scenario. And what I find interesting these days is that the majority of projects that I'm currently involved in is around, I call it caveman IT. We hunt and collect and never delete. And now with that home office stuff, we have all kind of files and data everywhere in our data center. Every file is there multiple times. Oh, you have a nice Excel sheet. Can I have a copy? And all of a sudden, you have it each and everything everywhere. Those people that have been data messies on premise made a decision over the past years to go to the cloud. Now they are data messies on Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, whatever. And with now everyone also going into home office, external hard drives and all that stuff, you distribute everything that you have in terms of data even further out, right? And so my approach right now is we need to get back to where do we have data? What data is it? Understand the context, not only when it was created, but what is actually in our files. Clean the house. I mean, there's a great new term that I learned, which is rot management. Redundant, obsolete, and trivial data, right? Get rid of it. If you have 20 copies and you only need one, well, then delete 19 of those copies. Storage industry doesn't like that approach, but I don't care. So clean the house. The less data you have, the less attack surface you have if someone tries to break in, and then make wise decisions on what do you need to protect. I mean, there's not a single organization out there that has not a regulatory requirement, such as GDPR, or the automotive suppliers now need to be TSAX compliant and it's audited. Financial services, PCI DSS, all those requirements are there since ages, and you have to adhere to them. And how do you really get to a stage that you can at least be close to compliant if you haven't understood what you have, where you have it, and how to protect it?
Right. Well, it's a continuum between having too much stuff in too many different places and having a minimum of protection. You know, I have friends who are writers and researchers, and their mantra is that if you do not have at least 3 different copies of something you're working on, it's one step away from not existing. I mean, it's got to be, there must be a backup, and there has to be a backup of the backup. But that's not scalable, is it?
I'm fine with backups. What I can't get is, I recently spoke to a bank, and they have their own financial services applications, homegrown, self-written. And whenever they do a new release, they have to test the new release. Guess how they test the new release? They test it with production data. So you make a copy of your production data into your test environment, which is far less protected than anything else, and then you test. It's so easy to create anonymized test data out of production data. It's more or less you can do that on demand with like that, and we're not doing it, right? Instead, we are throwing more and more money on perimeter security and all kind of other interesting stuff, and forget to think about what was it actually that I needed to protect.
Why do you think is that?
Well, one of the things I had to learn over the past years is that we have, at the moment, something in the range of 3 to 4 million IT security positions that are not filled. So there's a huge shortage on skill and staff, which is why so many people say you need to do AI-driven security so that the machines are taking over that. And that means literally every IT department is suffering from that staffing problem, and has to do more and more every year with less budget and less people. And that worked for quite some time. Increased efficiency, all good, but now we are again in a crisis situation, a turning point where that doesn't work any longer, right? You can't, I mean, I was talking to a 12,000 employee company this week. They have 3 people in the IT department, and 1 is doing part-time IT security. They don't even have the time to think about what their strategy is going forward. It's just ad hoc management of the problems that come up every day.
Yeah, putting out fires one after the other.
This is a very good topic, as Michael is also a fire brigadier in Switzerland. And he is very used to firefighting, not only in the IT security environment, but also in real life. And coming to that point, you observe that a lot of organizations are really unprepared running into disasters. With open eyes, they drive with a high-speed car towards a wall. and do not break, but instead crash it. Why, for Christ's sake, are people not taking up the proper measures to secure their stuff, which is valuable, and encrypt it?
Because encryption has a negative reputation. I know probably more companies that have been struggling of implementing PKI infrastructures or any kind of encryption over the last 20 years than those companies that really got it to work and have their problem solved with it, right? It starts with, if you apply encryption on just your name, Ralph Korb, typical AES encryption will blow up Ralph Korb to something very long, consisting of letters, alphanumeric, extra letters, what have you. And then all of a sudden, applications are no longer able to process the result, right? So so that means you're limiting the use cases of encryption. The next thing is search will become quite difficult on encrypted content, for example. But search is something that all of us need, right? I mean, it's IT messies that we are, we never know where something is, so we have to search for it. And these are the challenges that you face with encryption. And there's not too many vendors out there. I'm happy to work for one of them that have a different approach to encryption that may actually be a more forward-looking approach, which means you start with something called data-centric approach. And the data-centric approach is you protect data when you create it, and you only unprotect it when really needed. So I create a new contact in a CRM system, new customer. I store it already protected in the CRM system. Then I have to send a bill out to that customer. Obviously, it makes a lot of sense for billing if the address is decrypted. If at one point you want to be able to collect the money, right?
As well as the amount, yeah.
Everything in between, there's no real need for decrypting it typically, right?
Yeah.
And so the only way how you can actually make a data-centric approach really work is that your encryption technology, your encryption platform supports your technology stack, because it needs to be literally everywhere. It goes from mainframe to the point of sales device. It goes from direct application integration over APIs to transparent encryption at the gateway. You have to play in all these disciplines. And if you combine that with a encryption approach that is standard, certified, NIST standard, for example, which is format preserving encryption, then all of a sudden you have referential integrity of the data, and the applications are able to process the data. So let me give you an example. If you take Ralph Korb as a name, the encrypted result may be Marshall Lager, just to make it up, right? But it still looks like first name, last name, and it is only letters, right? There's no numbers in between, no question marks, no nothing, right? So that means it is still a valid input for every application that is expecting a name to be processed. Take the credit card industry. You have credit card numbers that have, I think there are 16 digits. 8 digits actually give you tell you what credit card vendor it is, and the last digits are just a checksum, right? They are most often used, the last 4 digits, if you call whatever help desk of a credit card company, they'll ask you for the last 4 digits, and if you provide them, then they can identify you as Ralph Korb, for example. So our approach, for example, on credit card and what we do here with the Voltage products is coming from that financial services business is we encrypt the 8 numbers in the middle and replace them by numbers. So it still looks like a valid credit card, but whoever gets it cannot go shopping with it. Right? It doesn't work. But you can do help desk because the last 4 digits are not protected. They are still the original ones. And that's the way where all of a sudden you are put into a position that you can work with protected content. It's nothing where you just double click on setup exe and it works smooth and easy everywhere. You have to think about when and how you use data and where the data requires to be unprotected. But I mean, we have been also talking about cloud, right? I had a call recently with an analyst company, and there was someone from Microsoft, and they repeated their shared responsibility model. It means Microsoft takes responsibility for their cloud infrastructure all the way up to data. When it comes to data, there's only one person that is responsible for it, and that's the customer of Microsoft. So how on earth can you as a customer that gave the data into the cloud still be responsible for the data and be in control of it? Right? You actually lose your control over your own data.
Why?
Why? How do you control who is doing what with your data in the cloud?
How do I do that in my data center?
Administrators of cloud operators have access or no access to your data. I mean, you have tons of documents, contracts that say, "Hey, trust us," but there's a reason why Microsoft says, "Here's a shared responsibility. You are responsible for your own data."
Yeah, fine, but I now say that's the same in my own data center because I'm not even able to protect it at all because I don't have the skills.
Then why are you running a data center, Thomas?
Yes.
I'm just asking. Well, it's good and easy money.
Just for some Bitcoin mining, yeah. Okay.
Well, my data center consists of one server, by the way, and 2 laptops. And the Google Cloud.
Yeah.
No, but I'm just putting it to an extreme right now, Michael. What you're basically saying is don't trust anyone, they screw you anyways.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is you need to be prepared that someone gets your data who you don't want that they get your data.
Yes, but then what I'm saying is it's the same with my server that I have right here, because I'm not able to, I don't have the skills, right, to protect my network good enough that no one can get in.
So it's a classical, and again, back to my earlier point. What do I have that is of value that requires protection? If everything on your server is just not worth being protected, then you can still have happy 8 hours sleep every night. If on your server there's content that is sensitive because it might be whatever, legal stuff, financial stuff, whatever, that could even get you into jail, running a company and a server with sensitive content on it and not appropriately protected. And it's very clearly that you are responsible for it.
Well, that's why I put it in the cloud, right? Because they can. That's why I put it in the cloud.
Yeah, that's a false assumption from my point of view. The correct assumption that cloud providers typically have far better security than if you do it yourself is absolutely correct. I trust Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and all the other cloud providers far more than your skills.
Same. Same.
The way you demonstrated it, right? But that they are doing the job better doesn't mean there are no breaches. I mean, the list of breaches of cloud service providers of last year is quite interesting. And the problem is that if somebody breaks in there, no matter how, internal or external, they have access to far more data than if they just break into your little server. And I think that's part of that thought process around shared responsibility. You still need to be cautious of where you put your data, right? You still need to think about what can you do in order to stay in control of your data. And there might be easy steps like just knowing what you have there, understanding where valuable data is. I mean, that's a basic discipline that most organizations already fail, right? And then thinking of applying security measures. I mean, I can certainly help you protecting your server. I mean, me personally helping you, right? That's not a very scalable business model. But for slightly large organizations, I think it's key to be risk aware of what you do.
I just want to show up one of my favorites in world's biggest data breaches and hacks. And this is, if it's not playing a fool with me, updating itself to the latest hacks and data screening. And you find there 2020, and you find there very attractive and well-known names.
I mean, just jump into it, right? Aadhaar was the Indian national ID. 1.1 billion national IDs have been stolen. Not so nice. Marriott International, they only show up here once, but in actual fact, they have to be presented here twice. They lost customer data twice in the last 3 years, right? I mean,
I don't see the Oracle breach.
Well, because this is on an Oracle server, and they
that
don't
might
want
be might be a service by Oracle here.
yeah,
To be precise.
Yeah, feel free to go into information is beautiful. I'm love to share the link because after I have found that one, I was regularly looking into that because I was so surprised how many data breaches in a period of 12 months has happened. It's very heavy stuff. And it is very informative. Well, it cheers me up to see there some action more than to look into the up-to-date COVID numbers.
Okay, so where is it there?
You can select by Oracle. You search for Oracle and you find...
I don't even see your bubble graph. I'm on the homepage on my other machine right now. I'll find it.
It doesn't matter. I mean, there's not a single organization on the planet that is able to be 100% sure that they'll never be hacked. No. I'm sometimes giving courses at the university in Lucerne, and what I try to tell the students is 50% of the companies know that they've been hacked, and the other 50% have been hacked and don't know, right? I mean, it's the question is, if someone is hacked, what can happen? And if I follow something like a data-centric approach and I have my sensitive data protected, let them steal the data. They can't do anything with it. It's at the end, it's data garbage that they steal.
Yeah. So what then? Now you know what your sensitive data is. What then? Turning this into a consulting session here.
Where do you store it, right? Where do you want to have your most sensitive data stored? Do you want to have that on your Novell file share? Do you want to have that on a more secure location? Do you want to store it in plain text? Can you protect it? I mean, there's thousands of options that you have to reduce your risk.
Yeah, no, I'm a small business. Let's stick to the small business world, Michael. So now so what do I do? So let's take my customer data, so invoice data or whatever, financial data, my cash book. I'm a simple guy. I only have a cash book. Where to store that? Can I use Intuit? Can I use Xero, Zoho Books, whoever's QuickBooks, whatever's out there, Microsoft? cash desk or whatever they have, cash book?
I mean, you can use all kind of cloud providers. There's great cloud providers. There's Eduli in Germany that does stuff for the SMB, and others. Again, you can just use them, or you can do what you do when you buy a car. You read the contract, right? In most of those general terms and conditions, you'll find quite interesting things. Right? I remember a CRM tool where I reviewed the general terms and conditions. Very fancy, very famous CRM tool, and they actually state in their general terms and conditions, you're not allowed to store sensitive data or personal information or financial information in it. I mean, it's CRM tool.
Well.
It's a typical approach frequently seen from US companies, like with no liability on our side, right?
Yeah,
If
they all
product,
say that.
it's your risk to do that.
Yeah,
It doesn't work that way.
But okay, so you're just telling me that I should not transfer any money via my bank because what I signed there, and I learned that the hard way, on an international money transfer, they say once it's out of your account, it's your problem. Sorry, you pay us, but I don't care a shit. So now what then would be let's stick to the financial my cash book data.
Yeah.
So I can put a local cash book like QuickBooks Local, always possible. What would be a good way? So
as a super small SME, a one-person Thomas Wibernite company, what you probably would do is either you do it on one of your two laptops, or you use a cloud offering. If you use a cloud offering, I would ask the cloud service provider for backup frequency, stuff like that, which is kind of a good criteria for you, right? You want to ensure that you can continue your business if they have a problem.
Yeah.
If you use an on-premise solution, if you store your data on-premise, you'll probably not go for a data-centric approach. But the easiest thing that you can do is use the disk encryption that your operating system most likely already offers you. Right? Most users don't do that. But if you already start doing these small things like using disk encryption, you're increasing your security level and decreasing your risk level.
Okay.
If somebody steals your laptop, well, if the disk is encrypted, they need to somehow hack your password that you hopefully have, which is too difficult. If they just try to read the disk.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, you reversed it from last year. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, means I'm better than I thought. By the way.
Yeah.
I reversed the password and it's disk encrypted.
Yeah. If we see how today's attacks are happening, 85+% of attacks are using email as their door into your corporation or into your private home. Yeah. If you have appropriate email hygiene, you can eliminate 85% of the threats that are coming, right? So that can be a proper internet security suite with anti-spam and anti-malware and what have you. It can be that you route your emails through a provider that has a higher level of security that you can either procure or it's already built in, or you can work with secure mail in a very easy way where only legitimate senders and recipients can exchange email, stuff like that. So email is still the number one root cause why organizations get infected and lose data.
Okay.
And by the way, the pandemic has shown a 60% or so increase in phishing attacks and all of that stuff.
Well, see, there's the ever-present problem that the biggest security vulnerability is always the person. You know, most breaches are either physical or social, as far as I know. And how do we address that? Now, you can put all the smoke alarms and sprinkler systems in your house you want, but if you smoke in bed or you pour water into a hot oil pan, what you gonna do?
Don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you're perfectly right. That's
Yeah, but people, I think people don't want to do what is necessary. I know that I don't. I'm terrible about backing up my own files manually. That's why I use products and services that do it for me.
yeah.
And security's no different, but that isn't enough. Certainly, it's not enough now. How can we change behavior? Do you think? Can we?
I haven't given up on that one. That's why I'm giving these university courses to leaders of government organizations. And typically, after those 3 hours, they are scared to death, and
Good.
and try to throw away their mobile devices. No. I mean, what I try to do is I try to teach people in those courses that they need to develop a personal, professional paranoia. They need to start putting context to everything that they get. So my wife and my 2 daughters hate me for all those lessons that I teach them. But in the meantime, after only 20 years, they understood the value of, if I receive an email, I don't click on things in email. If I receive an email, I try to figure out who sent it. And yes, it can be someone that I know, but is that someone now sending me this content? Does it make sense? Put context to it, right? Put a little bit of logic around it. And even those simple measures make a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about backup. Perfect. I love backup. And yes, it's another great, easy piece of a good security strategy, right? In case you were hit by ransomware, I still have a backup from last week that I can use, and I only lost a couple of hours, couple of days work, and not everything, right? But I mean, how many companies have a proper backup process, including testing the recovery every now and then?
Aha.
You only realize when you have to that you never tested the recovery process, right? Oh my
Guilty
God.
of that one, yeah.
Yeah. Or take all those that move like their CRM into the cloud, use Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, or whatever. And when for whatever reason one of those providers goes offline for an hour, couple of days, I mean, how do you continue your work? And then you realize, it would be better if we had at least one copy of our own data in-house. And all of those tools allow that. All of those tools give you the chance to use an API to make a complete dump of the data that you stored in the cloud. But how many organizations are doing it? Probably less than 1%, I would guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't cost too much to do it. And it can be automated.
Which is a good thing nowadays. Automation, I mean. A minute ago, you said an interesting word, mobile device, which brings me to the thought of all those communications thingies. Yeah, so there are messengers galore. And many of them, I suspect, would be quite interesting with regards to corporate security and dissemination or distribution of private data. What's your thought about that? What should be avoided?
It's another one of those topics that are endless. I mean, I'm using, because it's super convenient, allows you video conferencing with your family and all of that stuff. I'm using a nice iPhone. But one of the things where you realize that this has never been built to be a corporate device is when you see email. So you have an email account, your private email account, and a company email account in Apple Mail. And it is so easy to take a corporate mail with super sensitive content and just forward it to yourself, but you don't do that from your corporate account. You just switch accounts and say, I'll take the corporate email and send it from my private email account to my private email address. And nobody will ever realize in corporate that I've just stolen data, right? So again, the answer that most organizations have, if they have an answer, is throw more technology on the device, right? Have a secure Outlook container. There's all these AirWatch, whatever things, BlackBerry stuff around where you can have protected containers. You can prevent printing. You can prevent forwarding, etc., etc. But we are constantly challenged with this is making me more productive and this is making me more insecure, right? Again, it comes down to how are users using it. There's a new law in Germany, it's not new, it's 1.5 years old, called GESchG, Geschäftsgeheimnisschutzgesetz. So the trade secret law, you could loosely translate it. So in the past, as a company, there were a couple of professions that had special secrecy requirements, like lawyers, doctors, right? By nature, they were not allowed to share anything. Everyone else was kind of free to share company secrets. Now you have this law, which was intended to help organizations understand what is their biggest asset and then protect it. But that requires also that you inform each and every one in your company that this is a critical asset, this is the core of our business, and therefore we protect that core of our business. That can be a process, that can be a technology, but it always has to include the employees to understand this is core to our business, and therefore we don't share that elsewhere. So now if you have that, and if somebody leaves the organization and takes with him or her the complete customer list, for example, you now have legal possibilities to raise claims against the individual and against the company where he went to, and that can be quite severe in consequence. Right? The point that I want to make is it's never process only, it's never technology only. The key part here that always is underserved is the employee, is the people. And what is annoying is that most employees are not IT security specialists, nor are they employed for that purpose. They are accountants, they are HR, whatever, but all of them are using those digital tools and have to be made aware what the downside of that can be.
Right, and there will always be risk. For data to be usable, it has to be accessible. If you have it offline in a box in a fireproof safe, that's great, but you can't
work with it. It's secure, but you can't work with it.
Yeah.
Kids.
Yeah, the perfect suit of armor is a steel box, but you can't fight while you're wearing it.
Yeah.
Those knights did.
Well, with more or less success, if you look for the Roman Catholic Church losing every battle or nearly every battle when they went to the Far East and tried to hold Jerusalem, because having long swords which weighed tons and having heavy armory which weighed another tons, and you were not used to the climate, are fantastic opportunities to get easily shot down by hit and run, lightweight armored riders and warriors, which are knowing what they are doing to get you down. And similarly,
Ralph, it's the same today with IT security. You can put all kind of fences around your data. You can have all kind of measures and stuff and invest tons of money into IT security. If you don't know what you actually want to protect. That's not very helpful, and it's not very targeted, right? So that's why I'm so keen to help organizations understand, discover what your real assets are, and then protect, very targeted protection of those things, rather than just running around and building fences, right? I mean, latest cloud, the fences don't work anymore.
It's very interesting to see that your former approach of the caveman IT created a certain vision in my head, such as I see a lot of cavemen running around with their hitting sticks and hitting down those which are not in the position to defend themselves. But if they go into groups and they know that there is a female they want to protect, then they have a clear course, they have a target, and probably they try to prevent the female because she's the only one who knows how to make fire. And this is intellectual property. And now we have a clear view what we, for instance, want to protect. And we want to protect it not with doves, Brieftauben. We want to protect it properly, And we are no longer in horse wheel-driven chariots. I have heard that we are into electromobility or something similar like that. So, Norwegian, at least there.
Yeah.
Norway, sorry.
Yeah.
The point is, I see your case. If you don't know where your target is and you run uphill and you are naked, then it will freeze up there. Be sure. And then you run down, nothing done. Ugh, stupid. So how do we protect, how do we get people sensitive that going for caveman IT and not running naked uphill? What would be some hands-on tips you would give? And where do you see the challenge 21, especially with COVID?
Which of the 3 dozen questions should I answer first? So let me just
for the next one.
Let me just rework the picture that you have created in my head. Caveman IT, as the word says, cave, right? I mean, that is this dark thing where you just throw in everything and you don't know what you have.
Yeah.
That is more the example I want to give, that you don't know what you have. I was not talking about women that make fire. But so
it's cool.
Again, put some light into the cave to understand what you have that is valuable and that requires protection. Okay. Is one of the things. The pandemic situation is not going away quickly, probably. Not quick enough, or not as quick as we all want it to be. And so I guess by now companies should know how to have people work from home office in a secure way and fashion. By now, collaboration platforms should know how they can do end-to-end encryption to avoid stealth of information and data. And by now, everyone should be back on track and thinking of what was the project that we wanted to handle last year. Things like, how can we respond to data subject access requests under GDPR? Have you ever tried that as a consumer, calling any of your providers and asking them, what have you stored about me? And what are you doing with it? And could you please prove that you deleted it if I wanted? The majority of organizations can't answer that question.
That's a real interesting question. So how could I ever believe that they, how could they prove it?
Well,
without me sending an auditor.
In caveman IT, they can't.
No way.
They don't know how many caves they are and how deep the caves are, right?
Yeah.
Again, I'm running in circles. That was my earlier point.
Yeah,
You
no,
need
no.
to understand what you have.
Let me just interrupt. Sorry. So now they have the most advanced IT. Yeah, so they are better than good. They are probably Star Trek level. Yeah. So
That's terrible. Have you
okay,
really thought
okay,
about
Star Wars level. Okay, let's go Star Wars level. Yeah, and Empire, better the Empire, because they seem a bit more sophisticated on the technology side. So now, how can, in a zero trust world, how can I ever believe that they deleted when they say they deleted? I
My
can't.
personal view on
I
that
won't.
is that as an organization, you have to deliver the proof.
Yeah, how?
Right? I mean, it starts with you need to know where I have stored Thomas Vivanite in my environment. Only if I can answer that question, I can actually be sure that if I have to delete, I delete him everywhere where it's possible. Because there might be a contractual relationship that
Yeah.
requires me to keep your record for another 5 years or
Yeah,
for 10.
that's fine. That's fine, Michael. So that's why I
But
brought
all
they
these differentiations have to be taken into account. And then you have to have
they're Star Wars level.
you have to have a way of a defensible audit proof declaration of deletion. And there's software that can do that for you. And then it's up to you if you trust the software or not, if you trust that report or not. If you don't trust it, well, you can go there, run an audit with that company, probably on your own cost. And if the result is that everything was deleted properly, then you have it twice. But I mean, those tools are out there that can provide you a defensible audit trail of what has happened, what was there, how was it deleted. Don't touch the topic of backup for most organizations. They have no idea how they delete things in the backup, but that's even that is solvable.
And
But
then there's
again,
probably some local Excel.
yeah, you need to understand the context of every file that you have.
Yeah.
And no matter if it is a scan of a fax that needs to be OCR'd, or if it is Office documents or anything else, if it is in files or in databases, you need to understand that. All of that is available, it's possible. It's possible as an on-premise solution as well as a SaaS service. All of those technology exists.
Okay, so but still zero trust. You can tell me a lot. Not you personally, you too, but you company can tell me a lot that you did what you are obliged to do. I don't trust you. So what you basically tell me now that the only way, there are two ways. The only way to be sure that you adhere to my rights is at my expense, make that sure, which is quite wrong. Or there must be something that is kind of blockchain based, which in itself is fairly secure.
Well, there's also fear of consequences. I mean, if you're that concerned about a company not adhering to GDPR, you raise an issue with the government. And if this company is found to be in violation, they pay. And they don't pay a small amount. I don't remember, I think is it 10,000 or 25,000 euros for the first violation? And it goes up.
It depends on the violation, and it depends on the will of collaborating with authorities.
Yeah, and that's for individuals. If a company is not complying for individuals, it's probably not complying for a lot of them. So it can very quickly turn into the end of a business if they're not adhering to this rule.
Yeah, but that's pretty much the same as with lawsuits. If you don't have an insurance, if you're not able to pay for the lawyer, then you're as good as not protected.
I mean, the GDPR is a law, and in the law there is the right of data subject access requests written down. And I don't know the paragraph by heart, but I think it's clearly ruled who has what right in that process, right? I'm pretty sure there is no right that if you get a proper report from a company as a access request report, and then you just say out of the blue, I'm doubting the report, and therefore I wanna start an investigation, and the company has to run the investigation. I cannot imagine that one. I mean, I recently had a case like that. I got this postcard from a political party in Germany inviting me to a EU Parliament virtual visit.
The color is suspicious.
Sorry?
The color is suspicious.
Yeah. It's actually more on the liberal side.
Okay, not the one that I thought of, yeah.
And actually says, oh, by the way, here is the data protection information. Your address data comes from a company in Bochum, and there's Article 6 of the GDPR that allowed us to send you this direct mail due to a legitimate interest, which is bullshit. I've never elected them, nor would I ever vote for them. And so what I did is I wrote to this address broker in my neighbor town in Bochum and asked them and did a data subject access request. And the response was, we legally acquired your data from a Swiss address broker. So the fun piece is, I actually live in Switzerland, but I do have a German address. So this German company bought my German address data in Switzerland, and the only company that we have handed out your data was not this party, is actually a electronic market. So now we are talking, that is basically your case. I know exactly they've bullshitted me with that response. So I could now go as a next step, take a lawyer and take them to court, right? Do I do that? No, I ask them to delete my data because I have several other hobbies. And but yeah, I mean, you have all the right to get that to have a data access request, and if that is not really the answer that you're looking for, and if you're suspicious, you can take the next step.
You basically prove that it's not the right thing, so that there's a shortfall.
Yeah, in that case.
Point.
Well, the case we have been discussing is that I gave you the correct report, and you're still in doubt because you're such an evil person.
Because I mean, you certified yourself, right?
Yeah, that's part of the problem. Yes.
Yeah. So okay, so I probably would have sued them just for the fun of it.
If you have a company that is part of regular audit processes, even that doesn't protect you, as we know from Wirecard. But typically, what those auditors are looking for is, do you have the right processes in place? And if all of that makes sense, if you have a continuous improvement process, if you are certified ISO 27001 or stuff like that, then you have at least the basics together to say the likelihood that this information that we provide to you is that this information is correct is quite high.
Okay.
I was wondering if you could help me with a vision I have, such as the fear of missing out is sometimes the driver for stupid actions. And you were so polite to mention that you have trained your family environment to be more aware of not opening by the push of a button everything and every stupid stuff. And probably you know that especially people which would like to have some more recipes or are more in beauty shows and I'm communicating with pictures. This is one scenario. Another one is that people prefer to listen to stuff. A dedicated form of podcasting. One way you could say, talk and forget. It's like a missile, but unfortunately there are some hooks.
Sounds like a Clubhouse missile. And by the way, it's wrong. It's not talk and forget. It's talk and store, because if someone raises a complaint, you still have to prove that the complaint is valid. So one of the things that you'll never really hear, that it is stored, because it's interesting one, right? I mean, you cannot become a member. You have to be invited. Oh, that makes it very attractive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as the entry fee, you just have to pay with all of your contacts. Sounds like a known principle. I mean, there's this kind of thing is happening everywhere. I mean, there's a reason why Microsoft bought LinkedIn, for example. Guess how many million contacts have they acquired in one go? I never thought I will end up at Microsoft when I became a LinkedIn member. So it is, right? I mean, that's a conscious decision that everyone has to make every day. You download an app, regardless of if Clubhouse or anything else. And one of the first things that you are asked is, do you give permission to access your pictures, your contact book, your everything, right? And for convenience reasons, and because some of those app developers really make it nasty, a lot of text and a lot of scrolling, you just hit the accept all button all the time. I mean, one of the things that GDPR brought us is now, whenever you access a website, you have to actively opt in for cookies. And most companies have made a pre-selection for my convenience of what cookies should be accepted. And it's just a nightmare. I mean, Clubhouse is not even worth discussing it. It's just disgusting. And the one thing that really drives me nuts is there's a Ministry of Digital Development, federal ministry, and the minister has invited to a PR conference via Clubhouse only. And it's like, if you haven't understood what this is all about, and by the way, the terms and conditions, my favorite, actually prohibit that you use it for job purposes. Great example for the Ministry of Digitalization in Germany on how far away from reality they are.
And I would like to make a statement. This is a proof that what professionals say, that our Ministry for Digital Development is a hobby. It's not a proper job. It's a hobby. And the girl who's doing it is a hobbyist and not a lobbyist. And she prefers to dress up in the most interesting.
It has nothing to do with the topic, but and I'm not commenting it. But back to the messengers. The other example that is hot in the press these days is Facebook and WhatsApp and the change of the terms and conditions that would allow Facebook finally to do more personalized advertisement because of sharing information between WhatsApp and Facebook. There's a lot of people in friends and relatives that are now upset and are asking me, shall we use now Signal, Threema, or what is the next thing that we should use, right? I don't know.
Telegram.
What has changed? Nothing has changed. First of all, WhatsApp has postponed everything until May. And if you actually if you actually read what WhatsApp Facebook is doing in Germany, they are not changing anything. The change affects everyone else, but not people in Germany due to data privacy laws. And so the same that WhatsApp has introduced in 2016 is still valid and will be still valid. So why on earth is that discussion happening? Right? It's all half knowledge, uninformed, but it was on the front page of a newspaper with 4 letters only, and therefore everyone needs to now go. I mean, Threema is a great product. I'm a user of it as well, and it's probably more secure than WhatsApp is. And the risk that the Swiss government is absorbing the data is less than with WhatsApp and then other governments. But let's face it, it's back to personal discipline and hygiene. What do I send around via messengers? Same thing, what do I post in Facebook and co. I'm responsible for my own data.
Two points. First, we are well beyond the hour, so if you have some time, we have time. So the onus is on you. Well, if you're fine, we stick on, because in regards to this Facebook, WhatsApp stuff, the other thing that really came up in the past months was Apple and their change of terms for their developers in terms of what their apps are allowed to share and how to set that up. What do you think about that change or that stance?
I've missed out on that one, so you have to educate me first.
Oh, well.
Oh, basically they are asking all app developers to very explicitly and very detailedly ask for an explicit opt-in and opt-out for whatever piece of data that is getting shared. This is probably a bit more strict than it actually is, but there has been quite some fierce reactions by those, well, marketing platforms, basically, especially Facebook, who even put in a one page full ad in the Wall Street Journal, which is probably not a cheap thing to do.
Not
Probably not. Especially not around Super Bowl time, right?
Yeah. That was earlier.
I think this whole thing of exchanging data back and forth. I mean, personal data is the new currency, right? I mean, forget about all of those digital currencies. That is something that has a real value and is treated. And at the same time, what you see is the upcoming of data privacy regulations all around the globe. Literally every country is trying to compete in that contest and have a more rigid data privacy law than the others. We are discussing segmentations between nations. China doesn't allow traffic outside of China. Russia wants their own network. Europe is starting Gaia X with, now we have our own platform, but then they decided to make it an open thing for the industry to exchange data. So, and it's like, you have that left, right, and center. And ads are just annoying in that context. The whole advertisement market that is tied to that, and personal advertisement. Now cookie advertisement will be forbidden, I think next year or so, or is it this year? I always forget when they wanted to do that. So you have to find new ways how to trade data and trade data legally. Is that Apple thing about the user opting in and out of what should be exchanged?
Yeah, so the app provider must have the user opt in or out. Opt in, actually.
And also has to keep track of the records and make sure that if a user at one point opts out, they have a correct record that user opted out.
Yeah, well, that comes back to my topic of before. So you don't really know whether they do what they are supposed to.
Now we are back to the trust play.
Yeah.
And how to deal with that.
And I believe I trust Facebook to do the best for them.
Absolutely, fully 100% agree. There's a great documentary about the Cambridge Analytica case, the previous election in the US, when they were posting all these quizzes on Facebook and even paid people to fill out the quizzes. And at the end, they ended up with 200 million Americans and what was it, 50 or so criteria per individual where they could exactly tell you how this person will behave. And the end result was something like the analysis of 10 likes in Facebook gave them more insight into you than most of your friends, than your work colleagues would know about you. And that number goes up to something like 100 likes, and Cambridge Analytica knew more about you than your wife, husband, or partner in crime.
Yeah, probably you yourself, yeah.
Most likely, yes, right?
We had the topic about COVID, about moving into the home office, working from home, schooling from home. and that this new environment does have also some, let's say, developments on our psychic and our health environment and all this. So we have to get more resilient. And when I was curious and visited your homepage from MicroFocus, which I know from my old days as a COBOL compiler, there has a lot. Yeah, I'm over 60, so I know still COBOL. Yeah.
No way, you're not over 60.
Well, he looks young, doesn't he?
Yeah.
His wife keeps him well.
She hunts me daily. Right, you are. Keep moving, man. Keep moving. My cave is sometimes lighted, but yeah.
Your point was, how is that industry dinosaur called MicroFocus now dealing with security?
Yeah, well, that could be one interpretation, such as I looked into this space and I looked to one column, which was very cool to me, cyber resilience. And I believe that there is a future in it. That
basically what happens, I mean, there's not many software companies that are in business since more than 40 years and still alive and kicking. That in itself is already cool. But if you have such a long history and such a broad portfolio, and 3 years ago, the enterprise software division of HPE was moved over to MicroFocus. And if you then try to sort out what you have now in your portfolio, and you realize that you have one of the strongest security portfolios in the industry, and that you really have to treat it differently, then things can happen. And cyber resilience is a key theme for us. And under that key theme, you'll find 4 major portfolios. One being zero trust security, in a sense how that originally was defined. So talking about identity and access management, names like NetIQ play a big role here. You have application security, security operations. You have so products like ArcSight and Fortify that are real brands in the market are part of that portfolio. And then lastly, there's the data privacy and protection portfolio that I represent for the region, where you have voltage secure data, which is that encryption platform that has all of these ingredients that we have been talking before, right? And so what is actually happening is that those 4 topics are coming together. I mean, every topic for itself already helps customers to be more resilient. But the core strength really is if you put the 4 together, if you increase the interoperability in between the different solutions, which is one of the things that happened over the past 18 months, then you'll finally end up with a quite powerful security portfolio. And that needs to be heard in the market, and that's why we are stressing that term cyber resilience more and more. There will be the Universe, MicroFocus Universe conference virtually this time again, end of March, where there's certain tracks on cyber resilience, cyber risks, right? So that expect that to be a key theme under which we will find the security products.
Okay.
Sounds great. And there's a clear hint in that you are trying to enable the work from anywhere folks in a proper way and to arm them in, let's say, an armory which is easy to handle, but very, very strong.
Yeah.
What is easy to handle these days, right? But there has been a lot of, I mean, one of the key things that is underlying under all of those technologies is core technologies like machine learning and artificial intelligence. You need to help customers make sense out of what they have. No matter if we talk incident management, event management, or if we talk data discovery, for example. You need to understand context. I mean, just take that context part, the context part. If we analyze files to help customers identify where sensitive data is, then you have a document that has a date. But is that the date of the file when that letter was written, or is it a birth date? If you have a number, is that a social security number, a contract number, or what is that? So typically, analysis tools can only say it's a number, right? But doesn't help you to classify the document, is it sensitive or not? And what we do is actually, we understand the context. We can identify what words are around a date, for example. And if there's a couple of words before the date, something that is saying born in or birth date, then we have quite a high level of assurance that this is a birth date. And a birth date is personal identifiable information that has a different level of protection needed than if it is just the date of the bill. Right? And that's something, the amount of data where you have to perform these activities, it's impossible for any organization other than Thomas One Server to do that manually. You simply can't do that, right? And then build an index. And then I recently talked to an energy provider. They are a multinational energy provider, and they have 50 regulations where they have to be compliant. And they had a failed audit where they couldn't prove where do you have your sensitive data, where do you have customer data, where do you have contracts, et cetera, et cetera. So now they have a super index, and against that index, they can now apply all of those different regulatory requirements and see where are the gaps. Are we GDPR compliant? Are we whatever is relevant in the energy sector in terms of but the core is you need to understand what you have, right? That's the core. And by the way, that cleaning exercise, clean the house, typically is around 40 to 60% of the data that is irrelevant and can be deleted. They had departments with 80% of the data that were deleted because they were just nonsense, right?
Just collecting for collecting's sake, yeah.
Yeah, and there's another great joke video that I have to send around via email, and that is stored on my personal drive inside the company, and then share it with another colleague, and all of a sudden you have that video 100 times, and then it's only 3 meg, but all of a sudden it's 300 meg, and stuff like that, right? And again, it's what attack surface do you offer to potential attackers?
Okay. Looking at the clock.
Yeah, we missed Tagesschau and the weather report.
Oh,
and it's freezing cold at the moment.
I need to have some fun, such as my sound signals coming up. The getting stuff together, the wrap up, the famous one.
Yep.
Before I ring the bell. And I'm very pleased that not I have an option to do my fun toys, but that we had a very interesting talk about keeping resilient, taking up the proper approaches, touched only once politics, and that we draw a larger picture about what people with their own sense of intelligence should rethink about what to protect, what to take care of, and to take care also of themselves.
And barely mentioned Clubhouse.
Well, there's no way not mentioning.
I'm also club sandwich.
That's like a value proposition, yeah, right now. Okay, thanks from all of our sides. No need to go offline for you right now, although I